Hello my dear students. In this lecture I will discuss about the topic hyperemesis gravidarum. It's clear from its name. Hyper means excessive vomitings which occurs during the period of pregnancy. First of all, its definition. It is a severe type of vomiting of pregnancy which has got deleterious effect on the health of the mother. Deleterious effect or the harmful effect and oblique or incapacitates her means the woman is not having enough capacity to perform her day-to-day activities because of the severe vomitings. The adverse effects of severe vomiting are dehydration, that is the huge loss of body fluids, metabolic acidosis or metabolic alkalosis. Normally due to severe vomitings, metabolic alkalosis occur, but in the few cases when the oral intake is less or poor, because of which there is no glucose available for the energy, for providing energy to the cells. In that case, fat is used for providing energy to the cells. So the fat metabolism occur, and the end products of fat metabolism are energy plus ketones. Ketones are acidic in nature, and when there are ketones in the blood, as a result metabolic acidosis occur. Next is metabolic alkalosis from the loss of HCl. HCl, that is the hydrochloric acid. As the gastric contents are rich in hydrochloric acid, and when the gastric contents are expelled out through the vomitings, it causes metabolic alkalosis. Next is electrolyte imbalance. Mainly the hypokalemia occurs, means the level of potassium is less than normal. Because of the severe vomitings, the hypovolemia occurs. What is hypovolemia? When the fluid portion in the blood is very low. In that case, the secretion of aldosterone is increased from the adrenal glands, which as a result causes reabsorption of the water and the sodium but excretion of the potassium, and as a result hypokalemia occurs. And last one is weight loss. Next is the incidence of hyperemesis gravidarum, which is less than 1 in 1000 pregnancies. Actually the incidence rate is fall during the last 30 years, and the reasons behind that is better application of family planning knowledge. As the family planning knowledge is given in the community areas on the larger extent, which prevents the unplanned pregnancies, and early visit to the antenatal clinic. Potent antihistamine and antiemetic drugs are available. Potent means effective. So these are the reasons behind the less incidence rate of hyperemesis gravidarum. Next is the etiology of hyperemesis gravidarum. It is mostly limited to the first trimester of the pregnancy, as it is usually begin around the 6th week of the pregnancy, and it is at its peak during the 9th week of the pregnancy. It is most common in the first pregnancy, that is during the primigravida. Familial history. If there is a family history of hyperemesis gravidarum, then the risk of having hyperemesis gravidarum is more. That is, the mother and the sisters also suffer from the same manifestations. Most prevalent in the hydatidiform mole and the multiple pregnancy, as in both the cases the level of the HCG is higher, which causes hyperemesis. Next is, it is most common in the or more common in the unplanned pregnancies. Next are the theories of hyperemesis gravidarum. Under this, first one is hormonal theory. The excess of HCG hormone, that is human chorionic gonadotrophin hormone, which is secreted by the placenta, causes hyperemesis gravidarum. Next is the excess of progesterone hormone. The progesterone hormone, when present in excessive amount, it causes the relaxation of the cardiac sphincters of stomach. This is the diagram of stomach. This is cardiac sphincter and this is pyloric sphincter. And if the cardiac sphincters are relaxed, there are the chances of backflow of the gastric contents, which in result causes hyperemesis. Simultaneously, at the same time, there is a retention of gastric fluid or gastric content in the stomach because of the decreased peristalsis. Now, what is the meaning of peristalsis here? Muscular contractions which pushes the gastric content forward. But if the peristalsis is decreased, means if there is a weak muscular contractions, then the gastric content remained in the stomach. As a result, the hyperemesis gravidarum can occur. Next is psychogenic theory. Nausea, if once begins to occur, it probably worsens or increases, but sometimes neurogenic elements play a role, like shifting of the patient from the home surroundings. It actually diverts the mind of the mother, as mother is having the fear of the childbirth and motherhood. So if the mother is shifting from the home surroundings, or if mother is having a little bit change in her daily lifestyle, that will help to decrease the symptoms of nausea and vomiting of pregnancy. Next is dietary deficiency. Under this, first one is low carbohydrate reserves, means there is less glucose stored in the form of glycogen, as it happens after a night without food. Normally what happens, during the night hours, all the glucose is used for providing the energy to the cells. In that case, fat is used for providing the energy to the cells, and the end products of fat metabolism are energy and ketones. As ketones are acidic in nature, and when the level of ketones is increased in the blood, it induces the vomitings. Vomitings also causes ketoacidosis. On the other hand side, ketoacidosis also induces the vomitings. As you can see here, this is the vicious cycle of vomiting. Because of various reasons or because of various causes, the vomitings occur, which causes carbohydrate starvation when there is no glucose available for providing the energy to the cells. In that case, fat metabolism occur. Same process, the two end products, and when the ketones in the blood increase, that condition is known as ketoacidosis, which also induces vomitings. Under the dietary deficiency, the another one is deficiency of vitamin B6, vitamin B1 and proteins. It is believed that the pyridoxine, thiamine and proteins help to reduce the symptoms of nausea and vomiting of pregnancy. But due to the deficiency of pyridoxine, thiamine and protein, there are the chances of hyperemesis gravidarum. Next is allergic or immunological basis. If mother consumes certain food from which the mother is actually having the allergy, so as a result, vomitings might occur as an allergic reaction to that food. Next is decreased gastric motility or decreased peristaltic movement. If the peristalsis is decreased, that will lead to retention of gastric contents into the stomach, which might cause emesis or vomitings. Next is the clinical course of hyperemesis gravidarum. Under this, there are two subheadings, that is the early symptoms and the late symptoms. Under early, vomitings occurs throughout the day and the normal day-to-day activities are curtailed or reduced because the mother is not having enough capacity to perform her day-to-day activities. Next is no evidence of dehydration. In the early stage of hyperemesis gravidarum, there is not excessive loss of body fluids occur or the starvation. That is, after a night without a food, the carbohydrate reserves are used, because of which the ketoacidosis might occur. So there are no any symptoms of dehydration or ketoacidosis in the early stage. Next are the late sign and symptoms of the hyperemesis gravidarum. Under this, there are the evidences of dehydration and starvation or ketoacidosis are present. First of all, the symptoms. Vomiting is increased in frequency. Next is oliguria. As because of hyperemesis, the hypovolemia occurs. As a result, the urine output is decreased. Next is epigastric pain. The pain occurs just below the ribs. Next is the constipation. As because of hyperemesis, the body is not have enough water. As a result, intestine soaks up or absorbs the water from the stools. So as a result, constipation occur because the stools become hard in the absence of water contents. Next is the tachycardia. As because of the hyperemesis, the blood volume is decreased. As a result, tissue perfusion is also decreased. So for the proper tissue perfusion, the heart has to work hard. As a result, the heartbeat is increased. Next is hypotension. Because of hyperemesis, there is a less blood volume circulating in the body. As a result, there is a fall in the BP. Next is increase in the temperature. As the body does not have enough fluids, because of the hyperemesis, it's really hard to maintain the regular body temperature. As a result, hypothermia occurs, which is actually a very dangerous sign of severe dehydration. Next is the jaundice is a late feature. Because of the severe dehydration, the RBC's destruction is increased, and the end product of RBC destruction is bilirubin. So if the RBC's destruction is increased, the level of the bilirubin is also increased. As a result, jaundice occurs. Next are the investigations which are mainly done in the case of hyperemesis gravidarum. Under this, first one is urinalysis, that is the lab test of urine. In the hyperemesis gravidarum, the urine is tested for quantity, color, presence of acetone, and absence or diminished chloride. As in the case of hyperemesis, oliguria occurs and the color of the urine is dark, which indicates the presence of excessive dangerous waste products which are circulating in the body. Presence of acetone, as acetone is a liquid ketone. Absence or diminished chloride, as in the case of hyperemesis gravidarum, because of the fluid loss, hypochloremia occurs. Next is the biochemical and circulatory changes. As in the hyperemesis gravidarum, the electrolyte imbalance occur. So the electrolytes which are assessed in the hyperemesis gravidarum are sodium, potassium and chloride. Next is ophthalmoscopic examination. Now the question arises, why the ophthalmoscopic examination is done in the hyperemesis gravidarum? As in the hyperemesis gravidarum, because of the severe dehydration, the vitreous of the eye is contracted. So because of the contraction of vitreous humor, this is the retina which is attached to the vitreous humor. If the contraction of vitreous humors occur, there will be the detachment of the retina occurs. Tear and the rupture of the retina if it contracts too much. So as a result, retinal hemorrhage or detachment of retina occurs. So to check these conditions, ophthalmoscopic examination should be done. Next is ECG, that is the electrocardiography. As in the case of hyperemesis gravidarum, there are the chances of occurrence of hypokalemia, which actually causes the arrhythmia. So to detect the signs of arrhythmia, ECG is done. Next is ultrasonography. It not only helps to detect the pregnancy but also helps to detect the other conditions like hydatidiform mole and the multiple pregnancy, because in these both conditions the HCG level is increased. So these both conditions might be the cause of hyperemesis gravidarum. That's why the ultrasonography is. Next is the management of hyperemesis gravidarum. Under this, first one is the principles of the management. First of all, to control the vomitings. Next thing to do is to correct the fluid and electrolyte balance. Next is to prevent the ominous complications, that is the threatening complications like the retinal detachment, jaundice, ketoacidosis, hypokalemia. But if these threatening complications occur, then try to detect that complications as early as possible. If the patient is diagnosed with the hyperemesis gravidarum, then hospitalize the patient. Fluids. For 24 hours, the oral intake should be stopped and the IV drip should be started. In 24 hours, 3 liters of fluids should be administered to the patient, which contains the half portion of 5% dextrose and the half of Ringer solution. And the extra amount of 5% dextrose should be added, which is equal to the amount of vomitus and the urine in 24 hours. Next is the drugs. First one is antiemetic drugs like promethazine, prochlorperazine, triflupromazine, which is given twice or thrice daily intramuscularly. Trifluperazine 1 mg twice daily intramuscularly. Metoclopramide, which stimulates the gastric and intestinal motility, which as a result prevents the vomitings. Next is hydrocortisone 100 mg intravenously should be given in the drip, which is given in the case of hypotension or in intractable vomitings, the vomitings which are hard to control. In that case, the hydrocortisone should be given. Next is nutritional support. As it is believed that hyperemesis might be occur because of the deficiency of vitamin B1, B6, proteins. So these nutrients should be given. Next is nursing care. Sympathetic but firm handling. Nurse should have to show sympathy, but the firm means strong handling of the symptoms. Social and psychological support should be extended. As the patient might be in the fear of childbirth and the motherhood, so that's why the social and psychological support should be extended. That's all about the hyperemesis gravidarum. I hope you all are clear with this topic, but still, if you have any kind of query, then please ask me in the comment section. My dear students, if you find my video useful, then please like the video, give your valuable comments and subscribe to my channel.